This is Stephen Tobolowsky, and you're listening to Fascination Street podcast. Bing! You win!
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with screenwriter, producer, and actor John Griffin. John has been in every TV show that's ever been, from Chuck to Castle to Bones, Lucifer, and most recently, one of my favorites, Call Me Kat with Mayim Bialik. In this episode, we talk about where John was born and raised, and him being a nationally ranked tennis player. What? We talked a little bit about his time at Oxford and what made him want to become an actor. We do talk about some of his acting roles, including originating a role in the smash hit Bear, B-A-R-E. But mostly we talk about his experience on the Mayim Bialik show Call Me Kat, where he played the love interest of Leslie Jordan. He shares some wonderful, wonderful stories about Leslie and what it was like to work with that whole team. As you know, Leslie passed away over the holidays in a tragic car accident, but John shares what it was like to work with him, what it was like to be on that show, and just some of the sweet, sweet kindness that exuded from such a tiny little man in Leslie Jordan. And then lastly, John tells me about a movie that he has written and is working to get made and how we can help. It's called Go Love Go and sounds amazing. So if you can help, reach out. He gives his contact information. I would love to see it. I think it's going to be a great project. And this is my conversation with screenwriter, producer, and actor John Griffin.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street podcast, John Griffin. How you doing today, man?
Hey, Steve, how are you?
I cannot complain. First of all, let me say that even though this is audio only, bro, you didn't have to get all dressed up just for me. You look fantastic.
Really going to the gym in my gym outfit? You have very low standards, Steve.
You have no idea. What happened to your thumb?
I was cutting vegetables.
And we're moving on.
Just sliced right into it. Yep, that's about right.
Oh, that sucks. I was working at a restaurant a long, long time ago, and I cut off the tip of my thumb as well.
Did you get it back?
I did. It wasn't enough that they had to do some crazy surgery, but they did put it back on with a stitch or two, and they said, "Don't touch it, bro."
Right. Yeah, I debated about going to get stitches. I debated, but I was like, I think it'll close. So it's a weekend. It's looking good.
All right, good. All right.
Great start. Fantastic
I know, right?
start.
I told you, bro. We're going to get into it. We're going to get to know you.
Yeah.
So, what I like to do, John, is I like to start with where people were born and raised. It helps us understand how they got to where they are, man. So if you don't mind, where'd you grow up? Where were you born and raised?
I grew up on Long Island.
Long Island,
New York, where I was just back for 10 days for the holidays to see my family. I am the proud son of two public school educators, very hard workers. Grew up in a working class town called Kings Park on Long Island. Not the greatest spot, to be growing up as a young gay guy who didn't really even know what that was at the time, but kind of migrated from there to, I went to Stanford University, and then I was 5 weeks from starting Columbia Law School when I decided I wanted to be an actor instead. So as you can imagine, my parents were thrilled.
I can't imagine that they were thrilled at all.
Yeah. They were actually really supportive, though. They were actually really, really fantastic. My mom's biggest worry was I just want you to have health insurance. Please just tell me you're going to have health insurance.
Well, do you?
I do. The Screen Actors Guild health insurance plan is fantastic.
There you go, Mrs. Griffin. He did it.
Yeah, I did it. So, yeah, I mean, I loved the law. I was an American Studies major in college, and I focused in law. And the great thing about going to school there was that I was able to take classes with the law school students in the actual law school there. And so I learned so much, and it was fascinating to me. But I was in a singing group at college called the Stanford Mendicants. and it was an a cappella group. And one of the guys a few years ahead of me, his name was John Livingston, who's had a nice career as an actor. And his brother is Ron Livingston and the Livingston brothers, and they've worked a lot. And John called me. He'd been down in LA a few years, and he knew I was planning on going to law school. And he called me up at school. He's like, dude, like, I know you're thinking of going to law. I know you want to be an actor, man. Calm down, bro. It's easy. Like, it's just calm down. Like, I'll hook you up with my manager. And so he did. He got me with his manager, and I was her delivery boy. That's why she agreed to manage me. I delivered back in the day before everything was digital. We used to have actual paper, headshots, and they had to be delivered to the casting directors. And this manager, had young guys like me as her couriers in exchange for representation. And so you sort of do what you have to do, and obviously moved on from that to better representation.
I have a question about that first manager or first representation relationship, not to be disrespectful, but if you're her errand boy.
Yes, that's what I was.
Is there a huge priority for her to get you jobs?
No, and that's actually a great story. There's a great story there. Now, God rest her soul, she's dead, and she did her best, and she was quite a character. She got me with my first commercial agent, and they got me a lot of commercials, and that's all great. But there's actually a very interesting story about that. So I got an emergency call from her saying, you have to get, and I won't say his name, but this actor's headshot and reel VHS over to the casting office. They're casting this movie Titanic, and he'd be perfect. You have to get it over there right now. Go over to Fox. So these are the days, before 9/11 where you can just drive on to any lot, and they just like, I have a delivery, and they let you on. I rush over there and all that. So the next day I'm back on the Fox lot, and I'm making a delivery to a different office. And a casting director says to me, are you John Griffin? And I said, yeah. He's like, how come you didn't come to your audition yesterday? And I said, what do you mean? What audition? He's like, I called your manager. You had an audition at 2:00. Well, she had called me at 1 to tell me about this emergency. Yeah, I didn't tell him this, obviously. Emergency that I had to get this reel and thing over to. And so, she sacrificed my audition in lieu of, because this guy was up for the Titanic, which in the end was probably a smart move for her, because the commissions on that were pretty nice.
So whoever this person was got that role?
He did get that role. And, Titanic did okay.
It was all right.
It was all right. The world somewhat liked it.
It did so okay, they released it again a few years later.
Yeah, I mean, that Jim Cameron guy, he might have a future,
What's his name? I'm sorry, I don't know these names.
Yeah, James, Jim, Pam, I don't know, something Cameron.
Oh, yeah, we're tight. I just call him Bobby.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware that before 9/11, you could just walk onto, I mean, I know there was security, but I didn't know that. I've only ever been on a lot once, and it was for a memorial service. That was weird, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So yeah, that surprises me.
Yeah, you can just walk. You had to say, hey, I'm here, and you show them your package, and then they just let you on.
Oh, right.
Not your package.
No.
Your delivery package. We're keeping this clean.
I'm going to cut out that clarification and let everybody just think whatever.
Very good. Okay.
Okay, so you graduate Stanford. You graduated, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then if my memory is correct, you went to Oxford?
Yes, I studied at Oxford for
the one over in Europe.
One over in England, yeah.
Yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah, I studied European American relations from the European perspective because I wanted to get a different kind of viewpoint.
Oh my God, I bet that was amazing.
It was really fascinating, and you work with a tutor there. It's that they call it, you read one subject. So I was reading this subject with a tutor. You do a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and then you kind of meet with this old stodgy guy who falls asleep when you read in the paper. And then he goes, wonderful, just fantastic. That's kind of the thing.
So you meet with James Lipton at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of independent work, but it was a really great experience. I love being over there. Coming from, a lower middle class background, we didn't have money to, do that kind of stuff. And so the fact that I was in Europe, I really took advantage of all the cheap Eurail passes, and you can hop a flight to Ireland for $29.
How long were you in at Oxford?
6 months.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It was really, really a wonderful, wonderful experience. I had some friends over there from school, so I would meet up with them in the cities they were at. For any college kid listening, I really recommend studying abroad for at least 1 semester or so. It really kind of sort of broadens your horizons.
Did you have a job when you were there?
In Oxford?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
So you're just living on your savings, or?
It happened while I was at Stanford. I took a semester off. Yeah, and I went there instead. And the credits transferred. Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's rad.
Yeah.
So did you walk away from Oxford with any sort of a certificate or a degree or anything like that?
No, I have my little alumni card
Oh,
that I'm proud of. It's a really interesting city. It's people think of it as like I'm assuming Americans think of it like an American university. It's very different. Oxford University is actually made up of 32 different colleges. It's all part of Oxford University. You go to Oxford, but you study and I was at Brasenose College, and it's an amazing place for another reason because each college has a subsidized student pub.
oh shut your mouth.
It was fantastic.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. It was £1 a pint, and they were so fun. And so, the Brasenose pub was where it was at. And then as long as you had your Oxford University ID, you could go to all the other student pubs as well. So you had all the student pubs, and then we would also go to what they call the townie bars. It was a lot of drinking. The English know how to put them back.
Wow, you really were there.
Oh, yeah, no, I was there. Back then in the day, I could handle my alcohol. Now I have half a glass of rosé and I'm a mess. I'm wasted. I'm a total lightweight. I'm a cheap date, Steve.
So, John, what made you decide? I know that you said you sort of just took a hard left turn and decided you were going to be an actor. Why?
Well, when I was growing up, I always loved singing. Singing is my home art. So that's what I did first. And I would.
Yeah, no wonder it was hard to be a little gay kid in Long Island if you're just walking around singing show tunes all the time.
Who also played tennis, because that was really viewed as a masculine sport. That was great.
Still is.
Yeah. Well, you look at Rafa, he's a beast. Rafael Nadal's a beast.
That's true.
So anyway, I would walk around singing all the commercials in my house, and I would drive my family crazy. And so I loved doing that. And then in 7th grade, I auditioned for the play Oklahoma in my junior high school, and I got the lead of Curly. There was this big controversy because the 9th grader didn't get the lead, and there was a petition.
Shut up, a petition.
Oh, no, it's so stupid.
Gosh.
It's just so stupid. But anyway, so I did that. And then in 8th grade, so I started doing the plays. And then in 8th grade, I played Joseph in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And then I moved up to the high school. I forget what the 9th grade musical was, but in 10th grade, I did Guys and Dolls. I played Sky. And so I was playing these leads in musicals, and I was singing, and it was going well. And then I won this thing that Debbie Gibson won, a decade before me, called the Newsday Long Island Teen Talent Show.
Wait, she won it a decade before you?
Yeah, well, maybe more than that.
Okay.
It's run by Newsday, which is Long Island's, biggest newspaper. And it's this big thing. And my best friend played the piano and harmonized with me, Rebecca Basio. A little shout out to Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca.
If she's listening, yeah. I sang She's Got Away by Billy Joel.
And hit it.
Yeah. So I don't want you to cause you royalty problems. I think you can only sing 7 syllables without you having to pay for it. So anyway, I got the performing bug. And then in 11th and 12th grade, I really focused more on tennis because time started to compete, rehearsals and practice. And I really was getting very good at tennis. I ended up being ranked as a junior on the East Coast.
What number?
I was 16th on Long Island. And I think, was it 16th in the ETA or Long Island? I can't remember. And then I was in the top 50 in the bigger section, wherever that was. It might have been Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. And, it was tough, but I really respect hard work. I think all teenagers should have a job. My parents, again, they were teachers, and they had 2 kids. My brother and sister are much older than me, and they were in college when I was, an early teenager already. So they were paying for 2 college tuitions plus supporting me and the mortgage and all of that.
That was back when you could do that on 2 teacher salaries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I had 1 half-hour lesson a week that they were able to, get me, and then an hour of hitting time. But in order for me to get more hitting time, I scrubbed the toilets at the club. I swept the parking lot. I sort of worked at the club as sort of a janitor, not sort of, as a janitor. And, they would give me more hitting time for that. And so that's really because you can only play outdoors on Long Island so many months out of the year.
Yeah. And
then during the winter, I'd go up there and I'd put on gloves and scarves, and I'd just hit against the wall. And that was kind of my practice. But I'm so glad I did that. And I'm so grateful to my parents for getting me those lessons, because it is still such a joy in my life. It's like a meditation for me. And I'm in a very competitive league where I have great competition. It's amazing exercise.
So you do still play? Oh, good.
I play all the time, and I absolutely love it. And I'm going to start playing tournaments again, actually.
Are you in California, LA?
Yeah, I'm in LA.
Oh, well, you could play year round there.
Yeah, no, and I do. I love it. I'm in a couple of different leagues, and it's a huge joy in my life. I think if people find a sport that, whether they're good at it or not, that they just really enjoy, it can be like a meditation. You just turn your mind off, and all your worries go away. You can just kind of focus on in the moment exactly what you need to do, and that's why sports are so great.
Love it. I don't know if many people know this. You probably do already, but the drummer for Metallica, Lars Ulrich, he was a nationally ranked tennis player before he was the drummer for Metallica.
I did not know that. That's really cool.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I know there's some good players, and I think Ryan Philippe plays. I don't know him. I know Courtney Cox is really into tennis. Elizabeth Shue tried to go pro at one point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's a great place to live if you want to play tennis.
Absolutely. So then what did your parents say when you said, hey, guess what, guys? I'm going to go act.
Well, I sort of cushioned the fall. So I told them that I was going to take a year to see how it went. So I deferred my admission to Columbia Law School. So I took a year, and I was working at what used to be called the Miramar Sheraton in Santa Monica at the front desk. I worked the graveyard shift so that I could make the deliveries during the day and go to acting class, and was making $9 an hour before taxes, driving a beat up old Hyundai with a bashed in door and trunk, splitting a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 other people, and just, sort of eating a lot of ramen and making it work.
That sounds like Los Angeles.
Yeah. But, it's fun as a kid, you're sort of figuring it all out. So that was the first year, and I had health insurance through the hotel. So my mother was okay with it, and I was paying my bills barely, but I was. And then at the end of that first year, I started to get callbacks, and I had done like a non-union film. And I was like, I think I'm just going to give it one more year. So I called Columbia. The dean was like, okay. He was just he's like, we'll give you another year deferral. And then by the end of that second year, I had started booking commercials, and I thought, okay, I can do this, and I really love it.
And that was back when commercials, like, you made
money,
pretty good money.
when they were actually union jobs, and they actually paid money. And so I called the dean, and he was like, I'm shocked. He was really cool about it. He's like, how's your money? I said, it sucks. And he said, would you like your deposit back? He was so cool.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he's such a good guy.
Wow.
I wish I could remember his name. He was a really, really good guy. And there's, in higher education, there's a lot of deans that can be real jerks. They're real pompous and all that. And he was the exact opposite. He was so supportive. And he said, well, I wish you all the best. We'll send you back your deposit. When you make your first 100 million, send us one of them. You know what I mean? And I said, okay, we'll do. I'm yet to do that, but I'm working on it.
That is a really sweet story. I like that.
Yeah, he was great. So they were cool. I started working, and then to answer your question, look, parents worry, you know what I mean? But they saw me on television. They were actually at the Sheraton when I got the call. I was in their room with them on my break when I got the call that I booked my first commercial.
Really?
So it was, it was a shared moment.
Did they believe you?
No, they did, because I started crying. I was so excited.
Were they just like, you set this up?
No, it was totally organic, and it was great. It was a great moment.
What was the commercial for?
My first commercial was for Heineken. It was with like puppies, and you see my reflection in a mirror. And the concept was that it was a Super Bowl commercial, actually.
Oh, wow. Your first commercial was a Super Bowl commercial?
Yeah. And then it aired, I remember, during Friends. And that was a big thing to air during Friends. It aired during the Golden Globes. I remember the conceit was that I'm walking these puppies, and this woman comes up to me, and she starts hitting on me, and I get all flustered. Because she's so beautiful, and you see our reflections in the mirror, and the puppies have no interest in the woman, and they just start going towards this bottle of Heineken that they want to sniff. It was a cute spot. And then after that, I did a Domino's commercial a couple months later, and that's what really sort of allowed me to stop working a day job, because it aired during the Olympics, and it got split into 5 different spots, and then it ran for like a year.
Oh.
Back in the day. I mean, I wasn't rich, but it more than paid my bills. I was able to save some money, and then I booked a Dr. Pepper commercial, and with Christina Hendricks, actually, who went on to do Mad Men and like all of those great things and nominated for Emmys. And I was the Dr. Pepper guy for 2 years. And that also was very, that really helped me out a lot. So commercials were my saving grace in the beginning.
I don't know how it is now, but I think back then, you get one decent commercial, and then you don't have to really worry for a while. You can focus on getting all of the TV shows and all of it. You can focus on pilot season.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if it's still like that. I hope it is.
They're not.
I have a feeling it's
not. If you're like Flo on the insurance commercials, like she has a contract, and I heard she's an amazing person. A lot of my friends know her, and I'm really happy for her because, she's doing well. But if you have like that, but spots just don't run as long because the attention span of people, doesn't exist anymore. We all have the attention span of a dead ant because of our phones, and there's so many places for our eyes to go with streaming and cable and the internet. And so they run a spot maybe 6 months and then it's done. They used to run for like 2 years.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of them have gone non-union and they don't pay anyone.
That's an interesting twist. Okay, so you have been in everything from Chuck to Castle, Bones, Lucifer. I mean, I could spend the next 40 minutes listing your credits, but we're not going to do that. I'll just list some of my
Okay.
favorites. Also, before I get to Call Me Kat, which is probably my favorite show that you've been on, I want to talk a little bit about Jersey Boys. You played Billy Dixon in the film Jersey Boys.
Yeah.
Who directed that?
That would be Mr. Clint Eastwood.
Oh, yeah, the other cool Clint.
Yeah, the other Clint. Yeah, that other guy. Yeah. He's done a couple of things as well. Super, super great guy. I auditioned for that movie. They wanted a singer, obviously. And it's a fun story because I auditioned, I went in, and I always try to leave it there because the chances are you're not going to get the job. So you go in, you do your work, you do the best you can. And I had a teacher say, he had a chapter in his book called Sweep the Alley, which means like afterwards, just go do some gardening, sweep something, just like forget about it and leave it. Win the room and get the hell out of there.
Go play tennis.
Yeah, exactly. So I forgot about it. And I had a manager at the time and we had stopped working together. It was like a few months later. And then she called me and she was like, hey, it's a little awkward. How are you? I said, okay, how are you? She's like, well, good. You booked Jersey Boys. And I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, what is that?
That was like 3 months ago. She's like, yeah, you booked it. I was like, oh, okay, great. So, I show up and I had rehearsed with the musical director and I knew this was going to happen. We were supposed to sing the whole song in the movie, but the whole conceit of the scene is that the backup singers who later became this famous group were not into it because they were singing backup. And so they were like, screwing around and not doing a good job. So I was like, how would we ever get through the whole song? So we do it once and Clint comes out. He's like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I'm nodding and I'm smiling. And he said, John, I think we can only have you do one verse. I said, I totally get it, And he goes, I feel so bad. I said, don't feel bad. It makes sense. So, but he's such a good guy. So what happened was we do the one verse, the engineer in the movie yells, cut, and he comes out and we have the scene and I'm just supposed to be standing there. Well, the guys leave and they start throwing insults at me. And then I improv back in the moment. I didn't know they were going to do that. Clint kept all of it and then finished on a close up of me, which he certainly did not have to do. And it's the same crew that he works with all the time. So they all speak the same language and it's such a relaxed vibe when you work for him. He's just a great guy and he's so talented. I don't know if you know this, but he composes a lot of his own films as well. He composes the score and
I had no idea.
Yeah, he's really, really, really incredible. So yeah, that was kind of a sort of a dream moment getting to say you got directed by Clint Eastwood.
Wow, I'm so glad I asked.
Yeah, it's fun.
There is it's a TV show on Fox starring Mayim Bialik, and it is called Call Me Kat, K-A-T. Mm-hmm. I think it's in its second or third season. Third, there you go.
Third
okay.
season.
One of the reasons I like that show is because it's lighthearted. Mm-hmm. There's no gravitas in this show at all. Mm-hmm. It's all fun. It's all playful. So much so that some of the actors will look at the camera and talk to me.
Yeah.
At the very end of every single episode, every actor who was in any scene comes up and waves to the camera and says hi and basically thank you. I think it's really, really sweet.
Yeah.
Was that an audition for you?
It was. So I have my friend Anzu Lawson to thank for this because I tried to pass on the audition twice. So the part that I played was Jalen, and I was playing Leslie Jordan's love interest on the show. Leslie's character, Phil, you never saw him with a love interest, and it was going on 3 seasons, and they brought on new showrunners this year, Jim and Maria, and they were absolutely fantastic people. Everyone there, when I say there's not a bad apple, I truly mean it. It's the most loving, beautiful set because Mayim is such an amazing leader. She's so smart and so caring and so giving and so talented. It all stems from the top and just everything you would want to be true since you love the show is. Anyway, so this part was he's a straight-laced lawyer by day and then a singing drag queen by night. And I'd never done drag. And I was like, well, they're just going to hire someone from RuPaul's Drag Race. There's so many talented people. I'm sure some of them can sing. And my friend Anzu, who's a recording artist and actress and stand-up, she's like, no, they need an actor. They need a trained actor. You're going to audition for this. And, and I was producing a show at the time for National Geographic, and I was slam busy, and I was very stressed at that job. And that job luckily came to an end right before the actual audition was due, so I could focus. And she was like, the job's over now. You can do this. I was like, okay, all right, fine. I'm going to do it. So I went to a drag performer, and they did my makeup for me the day that it's a self-tape audition. We now tape 95% of our auditions are all now self-tape. We do them ourselves.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to win the room when you're not in the room.
Yeah. But there are advantages because you get to give your best performance. You get to do multiple takes if you don't feel good about your previous.
That's a good point.
Yes. So they did my makeup, and then Anzu gave me this great short cropped wig. Whenever I audition, I try to think like, what is everyone else going to do? What can I do that's a little different? That's still in line with the character, but like might make them say, I want the guy who did that. I want the guy who made that choice, not to like stand out, just to make it more interesting for me. Because when you see it on the page, I'm also a writer. You know what the writer intends, obviously. But our job, I think, as actors, is to show the writer the brilliance that they didn't know they wrote, right? There's other stuff in there that they may not even know that they wrote. And so that's what I always try to look for as an actor when I audition. And so she brought out a long wig, and I was like, everyone's going to wear a long wig. And then she had this short electric blue bob. And I was like, that's cool. Let's do that. And so I sang the song at her house. We did and then, the next day I got out of makeup. I did the lawyer scenes. And it was a long process of waiting to hear I was the choice. Maybe they did want to hire someone from RuPaul's Drag Race. I talked to my agent about how I'd never done drag. He said, I can't believe you've never done drag. He said, the tape's so good. If they don't hire you, they're crazy. Like, I can't believe it. And you sound so good when you sing and drag. And I said, well, I'm very grateful I'm trained, and I tell all young actors, like, you've got to learn how to act. You have to learn how to make choices and how to interpret material. And that comes from class. And I said, if I wasn't trained, I would have never been able to do that. But I just created a character, When it came down to it, my agent said that to the casting director, the wonderful Jeff Greenberg, who I met when I first came to town. He was one of my first appointments, and full circle, he hired me for this, and he really went to bat for me because he said, we need a trained actor. They're working in opposite two-time Tony Award winner Swoosie Kurtz, Mayim Bialik, Broadway star and TV star Cheyenne Jackson, Leslie Jordan, Emmy Award winner, Kyla Pratt, Julian Gann. All these amazing actors. Like, you need to be able to not just do quippy lines, but be a trained actor. And I still said to my agent, I said, okay, but, there are a lot of amazing trained actor drag queens too. So, I get it if they're going to go to a RuPaul's Drag Race person. But anyway, in the end, it was meant for me, and I got it. And Leslie was so incredibly welcoming from day one. I thought the work that we were doing was really important. The messages I've gotten, sorry, I always get a little emotional when I talk about it. I don't want to bring down your vibe here, but the messages I get from people are so amazing and sweet, and saying how important it is that we were showing a grounded, caring relationship that still was in a lighthearted, way that a straight audience can enjoy. And I believe all progress is good progress. So, not everything has to be sort of this huge, flamboyant life. There's other parts of being gay, and that entertainment is wonderful. RuPaul's is amazing. You know what I mean? And there's wonderful gay entertainment out there that's big and brassy and fun and outrageous. But I'm like a boring gay, like that's not me. And so there's another side of being gay, which is we're just regular people, just like everyone else, And I felt like the writers were so smart in the way they did it, because my character had this performance side as the drag queen, but then he was just a grounded guy that had these beautiful scenes with Leslie Jordan, who had such a big heart, and we really got to share some really sweet moments. And the whole point of their relationship was they were taking it slow. They wanted to take it slow, and they saw a future, so let's not ruin it. And I thought that you just don't see that, especially you don't see two gay actors playing that sort of grounded relationship, out gay actors, I'm saying, gay characters on network television, especially in a sitcom. I felt special what we were doing. A guy came up to me at the gym last night and thanked me for showing Leslie the care. And I mean, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't write it, but was so grateful to the show that there was, representation. He was an older guy. And so it was really a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. And I really fell in love with all those people and the set, and they just could not have been more gracious and wonderful to work with.
I'm going to ask you some questions that it's okay if you don't answer. I'll just cut that out.
Sure. Yeah.
Is your time on the show over, as far as you know?
Well, the way they tied it up was my character, Jalen, his character, Phil, ran off to Tahiti to get married. And the setup was there. In the Thanksgiving episode, we really had this beautiful scene where we say we're going to take it slow, but that we see a future with each other. And then for the next episode, we were on vacation in Tahiti. And then the following episode, we decide to stay in Tahiti and get married. And Phil buys a bakery and I help him run it. So that allowed Phil to have a happy ending and live whatever adventures he might. So I will be with Phil. Jalen will be with Phil. I have no idea what the writers have planned. Maybe Jalen will stop in once in a while to update people on Phil. I have no idea. I obviously would love that. I would love to go see all them and play in that playground again with them. But I don't know. I mean, I think they did such a beautiful job. Did you see the memorial episode where they...
I did. It was one of the most beautiful endings for a character I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing.
Yeah. And the way Mayim addressed the camera and just, they showed their raw emotion. And for those who didn't get to see it, I posted it on my Instagram, and I'm sure, Steve, I can give you that at the end or whatever. But Mayim said something like, what we've done here is we've given Phil a happy ending, but what we're really doing is mourning the loss of our dear friend, Leslie Jordan. He's irreplaceable. We miss him very much. And that was it, and Dolly Parton was on and sang a song, and the editing team there is so great. Emmy nominated, by the way, and put it together a fantastic clip tribute package for Leslie.
What we've done here is we've given Phil a happy ending. What we're really doing is mourning the loss of our dear friend, Leslie Jordan. He is irreplaceable. We will miss him very much. Love. Light.
Leslie.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
Yeah, so who knows? Jalen and Phil are alive and well in Tahiti. Maybe Jalen has to come into town and wrap up a case. I have no idea, but I'm just so grateful for the time that I did have there. And if I get to go back for one or two more or whatever as a periodical Phil update, that'd be amazing.
Maybe Phil will zoom in, like he'll Zoom call everybody, but then as soon as y'all pick up, he's got to go put out a fire in the bakery and it's just you talking to him off screen. Maybe something cool like that.
Exactly. Who knows?
That episode, we knew it was coming, right? We knew something was coming. Something had to be said.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be brought up. Listeners, I can't imagine anybody listening doesn't know, but Leslie Jordan, he died in a car accident over the holidays, and that was heartbreaking. That episode, we knew it was coming, and then when it finally was sitting on our Hulu ready to watch list, we procrastinated. We were like, this is going to hurt. We're going to have cocktails when we're watching this.
Yeah.
This is going to be painful. Like I said earlier, it was one of the most, if not the most respectful and beautiful ending of a character that I've ever seen. It was so spectacular. I don't know who wrote it, whoever it was. They all did a great job. At the very end, right before Mayim speaks, you come from off camera and you bring Leslie's director's chair.
They were so generous to ask me to even be involved,
Because you weren't in the episode at all, because obviously you're in Tahiti.
No, we're in Tahiti, and, there's little touches in there that, that the viewer might not notice, but that meant so much to all of us. Like Kyla was wearing the shirt that she wore in the very first episode when they shot the pilot in that scene. Mayim was wearing Leslie's sneakers. And they put me in this maroon blazer that I had worn in that fire pit scene in the Thanksgiving episode where we share our first kiss. And then this shows who they are. Like afterwards, I was in my dressing room, like sobbing, as we all were. And I got a knock on the door and it was wardrobe. And they were like, do you want to keep this blazer? And I know that sounds silly to a lot of the listeners, but studios don't give you clothes anymore.
You have to steal stuff.
Yeah, it used to, like, if the wardrobe department really liked you back in the day, it used to, quote unquote, fall off the truck, and they'd be like, you look great in this hat. Here, take it. It fell off the truck. But, they're like, we want you to have this. And so, I wore it over the holidays because it means a lot to me, that jacket. But that's what they dressed me in for carrying out that chair. And there's just all these little touches, and they're such smart people and they have such huge hearts there. And I agree with you. I've never seen something executed so well in terms of dealing with such an awful situation. I don't think they could have done it better.
I don't think they could have either. I mean, things happen and actors are not with shows in the middle of shows. That does happen. I won't say it happens all the time, but it does happen. Sometimes they die in a car accident off screen, or they met somebody and flew away or whatever. But the way that they handled Leslie's character's exit it really does show the kind of people that they are. So I'm glad that you got to, and hopefully will still get to, work with them. The way they handled that shows what an amazing group of people they are.
Yeah.
I am so sorry that you lost your friend.
Well, thank you.
I know that you guys didn't work together for 3 seasons, but I could tell, even before I'm talking to you right now, I could tell that he meant a lot to you.
Well, he's the kind of guy, I just want to tell you, no one in Hollywood has a bad word to say about Leslie Jordan. Like, literally no one. He was that guy that everyone just adored. It's because the second you met him, he just took you in. On our first day, we were rehearsing a scene and there was a little break. He goes, "Oh, honey, I just bought my first condo." I said, "Oh, God, that's awesome." He's like, "Oh, I'm so excited." And I said, "Well, you're so busy because I don't know if you know this, but like he recorded an album, he had books. He was working on a skincare line for older men for this Israeli company. I mean, like, he was hustling." And I said, "You're so busy with the show and all you're doing, you must have hired an interior designer to help you." And he said, "Oh, honey, yes, I had to. Because if it were left to me, it'd be all tea kettles and plaid." I was like, I lost it. And he loved it when people responded, because you couldn't not, to his humor. And he wanted to have that camaraderie with you, immediately. When we were shooting, after we shot the first episode, he was so generous with his words. He was so sweet he told my audition story in an interview he gave. And I didn't say this before, but there were 278 tapes that the casting directors saw. And he mentioned that, which is really sweet of him. And he talked about how the reason why he thought I got the job was because I was sweet. Going back to what I was saying before about how I look for something maybe that other people might not do. Drag queens are known for being sassy and, smart ass and all that. And I just totally flipped it. I made that drag queen really sweet and caring, and a drag queen that wanted to fall in love. Same lines, but just different sort of take on it. In the first episode, when they first meet in drag. And we have this really lovely scene towards the end of the episode where I'm in drag and we're chatting and we're kind of getting the first, are we interested in each other? And we've been doing it a certain way. And our director, Mark, who's an amazing director, gave us all these different choices the whole week. And every single one of them worked. Like, that's the fun thing about working with these people on a show like that have so much experience in the multi-camera sitcom genre. Every choice can work. Like, everything they give you, let's try this, let's try this. So we were rehearsing a lot of different ways. The way we were going was a little bit more sassy than I was doing it, And then at the end, he came around, Mark, and he was like, "This one's for you, John. Like, you booked the job because you were so sweet. Maybe this time just play it really sweet. Do whatever you want." And Leslie said, "Well, it's about time. He booked it because he was sweet. Let's do a sweet one." You know what I mean? Like that. And so we all laughed. And so as I was departing, I just had this impulse to touch his shoulder as I walked out. We already said goodbye, but then I stopped and I touched his shoulder and then I left. And as a guest star coming into an established set, you don't really touch the other actors unless it's rehearsed. Like, you don't really do that, but he made me feel so comfortable, Leslie, as a scene partner. And it was a gentle touch. It's not like I was punching him or whatever, but so I just did that. And then his reaction was beautiful. You could hear it. And someone, I don't know who, one of the producers, it might've been Mark actually, yelled "goosebumps," after they yelled cut. And that's the take they ended up using. And that was the first episode. So, you can imagine how quickly you fall in love with a man like Leslie Jordan.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And so you mentioned that he had done an album. Is that why Dolly Parton was part of the show?
Yeah, he and Dolly sang a song together on his album. And that's the song that Dolly then sang a cappella, and then they played during the montage in the tribute episode.
Just beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that wasn't easy and it was very personal, but thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm sorry I got emotional. I know the podcast is supposed to be sort of like uplifting and fun for people listening, but
Well, what it's supposed to be more than anything is real.
Okay.
So thank you.
Well, thank you.
What the hell is bear?
I will spit out my coffee.
You're welcome.
That could have been like, if we were on camera, a spit take, literally. So Bear is an amazing, amazing pop opera that was written by these two geniuses, Damon Bartolo and John Hartmere. Damon has unfortunately passed.
Boy, I'm just bringing up all the good stuff.
I know. But that was my first big thing. So I did that very quickly after I got here. And we performed in this tiny, it sort of was like back in the day, it was better than this, but back in the day, people said we were like sort of Dawson's Creek on stage. It was almost entirely sung through, but it was pop rock music. And it was about the story of 5 kids whose lives were laid bare by the end of the play.
What does that mean? Their lives were laid bare, like they lost everything?
All of their truths were shown out for the world.
Okay, gotcha.
It took place at a Catholic boarding school in Vermont. I was a closeted gay teenager. I was playing 17, opposite an amazing singer and actor, John Torres. Jenny Lee Green from Sabrina the Teenage Witch and so many other things. Broadway, she was in Wicked, amazing actress. She played my girlfriend in it. Keely Lefkowitz, amazing actress who did Pain and Gain, that Mark Wahlberg movie, and Malibu's Most Wanted. She still gets fan mail from that. She played Monster in Malibu's Most Wanted. She played my twin sister and is one of my best friends. And Wallace Smith, who's gone on to do like a gazillion Broadway shows, who's on a series right now, I think on Spectrum or Roku. And Kristen Hange directed it, who went on to get nominated for a Tony for directing Rock of Ages. And Dustin Lance Black, who won an Oscar for writing Milk, was like our sweeper. And like he was do anything for like $10 an hour. Like he was a young struggling writer at the time. And he said to me, people call me Griff. I was blonde for the show. He's like, Griff, you need new headshots because you're blonde. Like, give me $50. I'll shoot your headshots for the program. Like he was our program photographer. Like, so there was all this talent tucked into this little 99-seat theater called the Hudson Theater on Theater Row on Santa Monica Boulevard. And we were supposed to run for 5 weeks. And we ended up running for like 6 or 7 months. And we were sold out every night. The fire station people were sitting on the stairs. We were getting fined and everyone came, David Geffen, Warren Beatty. We just became like the hit of the town. And we had it was a huge ensemble and we only had 2 dressing rooms and it was a tiny little stage. And we're literally like, no BS, crawling backstage to make our cues, to get away from people and all this. It was really an adventure and the music was stunning. MTV ended up buying the show. And we workshopped it. They were going to make it into a film for a while with Paramount, who owns MTV. That never happened. But then we did a workshop off Broadway at the New York Theater Workshop. And then like 3 years later, I had aged out. I auditioned, but I did not get the part that I had originated. They had an amazing off-Broadway cast in New York that was younger. Jenna still did it. Jenna Lee Green still did it. Jenna does not age. I don't know how. She still did the role, but she was the only one of the original cast who transferred to New York. And then they did sort of a revamped Bear, another off-Broadway run, like, I don't know, 8 years ago, maybe 9-10 years ago. So it's had a couple of off-Broadway runs, but we did a reunion concert in 2015 at 54 Below. And that was really exciting. It reunited the London cast and the off-Broadway cast and the original LA cast. And that was really, really amazing. We did, I think, 2 or 3 sold-out shows there. It's gone on to attain cult status. If I would Google it, if your listeners, they want to hear some great music, on YouTube, just Google Bear, LA cast, because I'm biased.
Bare.
Bare, yeah. And it's a tragic show. Basically, my character is in love with his roommate. I play Jason. I'm in love with Peter, but I'm dating Ivy, played by Jenna Lee Green. I get Ivy pregnant and everything kind of goes to hell. And then I get outed at the end of the play. And then he ends up killing himself.
Your character?
My character. He overdoses on GSP.
What's G? I don't know what that is.
It's sort of like what, oh God, I don't do drugs. I never have, but it's like what everyone now does. What is that drug? Oh my God.
Molly?
I'm so square. Yes. It's like the original Molly.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I'm so square, he said.
I'm so square. So anyway, it's like the original Molly, and it's tragic, but back then, and look, it's still hard. People are like, oh, it's so much better. It's better. It's getting better, but it's not still easy. I live in LA, and I was telling my family over break, twice in the last 4 months, I've been threatened with the F word, which I'm not going to say on your show because I hate it.
You hate my show?
No, I hate the F word.
Oh, okay, good.
That people call gay people. And I mean, it's, that's in Los Angeles.
That seems out of place.
Yeah, but it's not. That's the thing. So not to get so serious, but there's a lot of anti-gay legislation. I became a lot more aware of the drag community after being blessed with this role on Call Me Kat. They're introducing a law in the Idaho legislature to ban drag in public. So that means like if someone's on a pride parade float, they're going to get arrested. There's a lot of legislation working its way through the state houses across the country that is very anti-LGBTQ. And I'm not going to get all political here. I know you have listeners of all different threads, but if you care about people, I can guarantee everybody listening, they know a gay person. They may not know that person is gay, but they know a gay person. And there's probably one in their family. And so if you love your family members and you love your friends, just be maybe a little bit more aware of sort of what's going on at the state level, because that's where a lot of things are happening.
Compassion should be for everybody.
Exactly.
I think it's so weird that we care who anybody sleeps with.
I agree. It's so stupid.
I care about who I sleep with.
Yeah, me too.
I care about who my wife sleeps with.
Yeah.
Other than that, I could give two shits. Like, knock yourself out. I don't care.
Exactly.
Thank you for explaining Bear. I was a little confused. I mean, I had heard of it, but I wasn't really sure exactly what it was.
Beautiful, beautiful show.
Earlier, you said one of the things that you like to tell up-and-coming actors or whatever is to, get training.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get your training? I know that you went to Oxford and Stanford, but not for that.
Not for that at all, no. In fact, as an elective, my freshman year, I was like, maybe I'll try an acting class. And I walked in and they were doing this pass the ball exercise, which, listen, if it works for you, I say to people, whatever works for you is great. But they were passing the ball and like, take your emotion and put it in the ball and then give it to the other person. And I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah, I would have left too.
This is not for me. It's a little too heady. So I found a school. I studied at a place called the Beverly Hills Playhouse for many years. It was run by a guy named Milton Katselas, and I had very good teachers there. My first teacher was Gloria Gifford, who really was great at breaking me out of my shell. I entered into intermediate class because I had some acting experience in singing and performing and that kind of thing. And I was with her for, I think, 2 years. And then I moved up to the advanced class where I studied with Milton. And then he saw me do a reading. And Milton was nominated for a Tony and an Emmy. And people won Tonys, Oscars, and Emmys under his direction. Goldie Hawn won her Oscar under his direction, and Butterflies Are Free. He was a director. And he was a really, really good teacher. Tough, but good. But great, actually. Not good. And then he saw me do a reading of a script. He was invited to sort of a staged reading. And he invited me to then join his master class after that, where I ended up being for, I think, 9-10 years. People in that class like Doris Roberts from Everybody Loves Raymond, Giovanni Ribisi, and so many people that would come and go. And that Michelle Williams was in the class. It was jam-packed full of talent. And my first scene in that class was with Ann Archer.
Really?
Yeah. And so the way that class worked was you had to sort of sit and observe in the master class for a while before you're allowed to work. And he said to Anne, I want you to start playing different parts. You always play the nice wife. I want you to play something a little bit more gritty. I want you to do a scene from White Palace, which was a Susan Sarandon movie where she was sort of like a down on her luck waitress.
Love that movie.
Yeah. And she's like, I need like a smart young guy to play opposite you, kind of, like that Ivy League vibe. And I like shot up my hand, And he says, you're not allowed to work yet. You're still observing. I'm like, and I kept my hand up. And he said, okay, that'll be your first scene, And so I got to work with Ann Archer for my first scene, who was just so lovely and wonderful. That was one of my biggest acting lessons ever. It's not a very long story, if you'll bear with me. But So we did the scene, and that class, like I said, lots of celebrities, and it was 100 people in the class.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a big room. And when we finished the scene, everybody jumped off their feet and gave us a standing ovation. And I was thoroughly confused because I felt like I didn't have a single real moment in the entire scene, because all I could think about the whole time was, oh my God, I'm working opposite Academy Award nominee Ann Archer. There's a scene where Ann and I have a bit of a sexual moment in the scene, and my head's back on the bed, and I see Doris Roberts laughing and like hitting her foot, because she always had her leg. She would hit her foot as like she was clapping and she laughed. And I see Doris Roberts, and I'm like, I wasn't quote unquote in the scene at all. So I sit down, thoroughly confused, and I'm crying because I'm that confused. And I'm not that actor who's like, I cry because I do. That's not me at all, right? Even though I cried on your podcast, but that's because someone died. But this, I don't cry about like, oh, my work is so significant. Like, it's not that. I'm not that guy. So he's like, why are you crying? I said, I'm just genuinely confused. I thought I was terrible. And he says, okay, so tell me why. And I said, well, because, and I said what I said I said, the whole moment.
Did you say this in front of 100 people?
100 people.
Okay.
I said, Academy Award nominee Ann Archer, I saw Doris laughing, and I wasn't in the scene at all. I said, I felt completely overwhelmed. He goes, yeah, well, isn't this guy supposed to be a young guy, completely overwhelmed in this trailer of the older woman that he's with, who is so much more experienced than him? And he feels like he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and he's out of it. And I was like, yeah. He said, worked for me. And so it was such a huge lesson. And that's where I learned the kind of actor I am. I am a very technical actor. It doesn't mean that I don't have real moments. Of course I do. But when you're on set, there's the reality. There's lights, and you got to hit your mark. And you have to, maybe some people want to like stay in character. Like my left foot, he was in character, Daniel Day-Lewis, the whole time. And you have people carrying him from his, that's never going to be me. I look at something, I break it down, and I've grown to love that I'm a technical actor because I can execute. I make my choices. I know what to do. And I'm open to in the moment stuff like I was with that shoulder touch with Leslie and having those moments. But I'm never, it's just the way my brain works. I'm never sort of not thinking somewhat like John. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's sacrilege. I don't care. It works for me. You know what I mean? Whatever. And this is what I say to young actors, whatever, if doing sense memory exercises, if that works for you, great, do it. That doesn't work for me. And that's okay. And that was what I got in that lesson. And that was the most valuable lesson I ever got as an actor, that, if it works, don't question it, and that works for me.
What a great tip and lesson to go out on, unfortunately.
Oh, that's okay.
John, before I let you go, is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about that you specifically wanted to talk about today? Did I miss anything?
Well, there's just one thing I'll tell you, which is that I wrote a film called Go Love Go. It's a very, very grounded gay romantic comedy. I sort of wrote for the streaming market. It's won or placed at over 22 screenwriting competitions, including Slam Dance and the Austin Film Festival. We needed $415,000. We've raised $125,000 of it. And for me, it's right in line with my purpose, which Call Me Kat was as well, which is I'm still going to play straight parts. That's great. And I think it's important that, straight actors have been playing gay parts for years. So it's great that gay actors are playing straight parts. But I also, what I feel I can bring to the game as a gay actor, being how I'm made and what my sensibilities are, is this sort of more grounded, accessible gay entertainment that hopefully might have some crossover appeal. That's what this movie is. And so if any of your listeners are investment bankers and want to make a good investment in something that is a pretty sure bet to get acquired by Netflix and Hulu, and we have an amazing supporting cast attached. Autumn Reeser, who's done like 16 Hallmark movies and who was on The OC. Lole Parks, who's on Lois and Clark right now. Keely Lefkowitz, one of my best friends from Bear, from the movies, is in there. Shane Johnson, her husband, who was a series regular on Power and Power 2, the spinoff. He's still on that show. So we have like a great, 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 great cast. Rich Ting from Warrior. And he was just on Partner Track on Netflix. So it's a great cast of recognizable faces in the supporting parts. And it's an immigrant story. There's an Israeli immigrant in it who plays my love interest. You delve into a little bit of those issues. And it's a beautiful, beautiful story. And that is part of my goal as an artist, is to create my own content and to continue working for other people as I do it.
And what's it called again?
It's called Go Love Go, and it's about finding love in the middle of go-go. It's about a writer who has writer's block and wins a trip for two on the Wheel of Fortune and has no one to take, and he just came out, and his best friend takes him to sort of introduce him to the WeHo scene to maybe give him something to write about. And he ends up falling in love with this go-go dancer, and he writes about that scene. And how does he do it? He does it by doing the research, and he actually ends up go-going himself to do the research. And so in the midst of all of this, he falls in love. So in the middle of go-go is love. So Go Love Go.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Everybody listening who has a whole lot of money, not even a whole lot. Hey, just reach out. It's at like johngriffin.com or some shit.
It's my website is johngriffinproductions.com. And my Instagram is at @YoJohnnyGriff with 2 N's and 2 F.
So, Moneybags, hit up John.
Yes, please.
Let's make this happen. I want to see this movie.
It's a really good movie.
Man, John Griffin. Holy moly. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic screenwriting and acting schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Steve. I so appreciate the opportunity.
It was 100% my pleasure. You try not to cut the rest of your thumbs off.
No, yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much, man. Have a great week.
Have a great day. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2001 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.